All right, so now that we have our login done, let's go ahead and do the actual messaging parts of the application. Let's go ahead and go right here inside of our layout.js render method. We are going to get the user from our state that we set at the beginning, and we are going to say down here, we're going to put some JSX, and this JSX is going to say if there's not a user, if the user is null, we're going to go ahead and put the login form on the DOM, but if it is specified what the user is, we're going to put a chat container component on the DOM, and we're going to give it a few properties. It's going to be socket, it's going to be a user that it's going to need, and also the logout function is going to be needed in the chat container, because the logout button is actually going to be inside the chat container, and this is going to say this.logout. And now let's go ahead and import that up here, chat container from, let's say, chats folder, then chat container. Great. So once you got all that in there, we are going to, looks like I got something. Oh, I didn't close my tags right here. There we go. We're going to create that chat container component. So let's go ahead and make a new file. Save it as chatcontainer.js, and we're going to save that inside a folder called chats. And there we go. Perfect. Now we're going to make our React component just like that, and we're just going to make sure this is all working by putting chat container in here, and we're going to get our things from our props. So let's say the user and logout is what we're going to get. Boom. Great. And then we're going to also default or export this as default like that. And now if we go over to our application, oh, I got to put this dot props. Yes, get inside of this dot props. Okay. And if we log in saying love, you see that we have our chat container. That is perfect. Exactly what we want. So now let's go ahead and set up our render method for our chat container, which is actually going to be full of just other React components. So first, let's go ahead and make a class name. This is going to be container right here. And then right here, we're going to have a component called SideBar, which we're going to make next. And SideBar is going to take a few things. It's going to take a logout, and that's going to be that logout function that we got from above. And then chats, which is going to be something that we get from our state in here. And then user, which we are going to take from here, and active chat, which is the active chat or the chat that we're going to be looking at. And last thing is the set active chat, which is going to be a function that we have in here as well. So this is going to be this dot set active chat. And close that, and then we're going to go ahead and import that as well. Let's say sidebar from sidebar, nice and easy. All right, so let's go ahead and make a constructor right up here. This constructor is going to set our state of our chats and our active chat. So chats is going to just be an empty array for right now, and our active chat is going to be null. And anything else that we need to do, yes, the set active chat method. So the set active chat method is going to be equal to this. And all that does is it sets the active chat or the chat that's passed into this method of active chat to this variable right up here in our state active chat, just like that. And now let's go ahead and do our SideBar Component. So we save that, and we're going to make a new file, save it as sidebar.js. And inside here, we're going to make our component. Great. And now I'm just going to go ahead and get that markup and then show you guys exactly what's going on. You can just pause it and copy the markup, or rather not, just code it all out here. All right, so as you can see, there's a lot of markup going on here. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down just so you can see it. And then I'm going to explain it all. I'm not going to just tell you to, copy it and you not know what's going on. So first, as you can see right here at the top, I have a few imports, and they're just icons that I have in my markup to make it look a little bit prettier. So if you want those icons, you can go ahead to your server right here, stop it, and type npm install react icons. And actually, let's put --save on that, --save. And again, these are just icons to make the app look prettier. There's only one icon that actually serves as a purpose, and that's going to be our logout button icon. All right, so once that's done, we're going to go ahead and start our React server again, our development server, and yes. All right, so back in our code, we have a few things I need to explain. Again, these are just icons from React icons. So in our render function of our component here, we have a few constants that we're getting out of our this.props that we passed from our chat container. And in our chat container, you can see all those again if you don't remember. And that's just going to be the chats. This is going to be an array of chat objects. The active chat, which is the current active chat. The user, which is the user that is logged in. The setActiveChat function, which is just a function that allows us to set the active chat. And then logout, which is the logout function that allows us to log out the user. So down right here, let's start right here. It's just a div containing div with the sidebar ID on it for visual meanings. The heading right here with the class name heading, a div with a class name of heading, and inside there the app name. Ours is just going to be our core chat, and then class name menu, which is just going to be a little menu that I put up there. It's not really going to do anything, but it's nice to look at. And then we have a search, which is really actually going to be the add chat kind of functionality where we add the private messaging later on in this video series. And then input placeholder is just, again, just a placeholder for an input, and then a plus sign that we're going to make do things as well. Then right down here is where the meat of this whole component is, and it's called class name users. It's really like the name of, it's really the list of chats that we have currently for the user that is logged in, and it has a reference of users so that we can use that for our on-click right here. And this on-click says that if I click inside this div container, it's going to set the active chat to null because it's the div container itself is not an active chat. The active chats are actually going to be set down here inside our chats app, the JSX function down here. So down here, we're going to loop through those chat arrays. And the way we do that is using map. And we're going to say for each chat, if there's a chat name, which there should be, but if there isn't, we're not going to show it at all. But if there is, we're going to go ahead and return this whole HTML markup right here. So what are these constants up here? We have a constant that's just called last message, which looks at the messages and gets the last one of the messages, if there is one. Then we also get user. We have the user, and that's what this is just the user that is connected to this chat that is not you, that is not the user that is logged in, but the user that this chat is also connected to. Um, which that'll make more sense once we have more users in private messaging. But if we can't find a user that is not you in the users array that's inside the chat users, parameter, we are just going to put it as community, and that's just going to say community chat or whatever you want it to say. Then we have some class names that we set, and we say that if there's an active chat, which means this is not null, and the active chat ID equals the chat ID of the current chat we're on, we're going to set a class of active chats. Now, last thing we have is our return function, which returns a div that has a key that children of React components need if there's going to be multiple of the same kind of thing. And then the class name, which is going to be user, and the class name that we set right up here. And then the onClick function, which calls the setActiveChat function that we passed in, and it's going to set it to the chat that we are currently on in this loop. And now also we have user.name 0 to uppercase, and all this is doing is getting the first letter of the user.name, and that is the current user that you are, the current user that is logged in. And then the user.name right here is just going to be the name of the user again that we are currently. Then last but not least, we are going to print out the last message in our little sidebar. And then that is it. So if we don't return this, we return null. All right, and then last but not least, right down here at the bottom, we have a nice current user container that shows the name of the current user, and the onClick for the logout is set with this MD reject icon, and it's going to have a title of logout and a class name of logout. All right, so let's go ahead and look at that in the application. All right, so here we are in the application. If I type in a nickname and press enter, you'll see that our sidebar comes up. We don't have any chats in this little container right here, which is where that chats.map would go. But here's our nice little looking thing, and here's our logout button. That's that MD eject icon that we had earlier. If I press that, we log out just like that. Now I can log back in, but I can't because I haven't set up the back end server, but I'll log back in with that. So you can see that that does say log out when I hover over it. All right, perfect. All right, so next up, we are going to go ahead and get our messages starting to show. So we're going to go down here, and we're actually going to have a few components that we need to make. So we're going to make a div with the class name of ChatRoomContainer, ChatRoom-container, just like that. And inside there, we're going to have some JSX, which is just JavaScript inside of HTML. Active chat does not equal null. That's all that's going to say. So now if that is true, we're going to do everything that's inside these nice little parentheses. So if the chat is not equal to null, we are going to get this and that has a class name of chat-room, and we're going to have inside there a few components. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to move this up a little bit. And the three components we're going to have in here is a chat heading, which is going to be the header of our chat. I'm going to do this. And that's just going to take a name property, which is going to come from our active chat.messages, active chat.name, active chat.name. And then we're going to have a messages as well, so messages component. And that's just going to take, you guessed it, a messages property. And that's going to come from the active chat.messages. And all this is doing is going to display all the messages inside our active chat. Then that's also going to take a user, which is the user that we are currently, and then also typing, I can't type right now, typing users equals active chat.typing users. And typing users. Cool. And then that is all for that. And one last thing is going to be the message input. So message input This is where the user is going to type their actual message that they want to send, and that's going to take a few things. One of them is going to be a SendMessage function, and that's going to take a message from this component and send it to our this.sendMessage, which we're going to make in a second, active chat. And that's going to take two parameters, an active chat ID, which is the chat currently, and then the message. And then also message input is going to take SendTyping, and it's going to have also going to be a function. It's going to say isTyping, which is going to be a boolean, and that boolean is going to be sent to our SendTyping method that we're also going to make in a second. It's going to send activeChat.id and isTyping, which is just a boolean. All right, so let's go ahead and make those two things, the send message and the send typing, right up here in our component. So send message and send typing. I'm going to go ahead and get some documentation, and boom, there we go. We got our documentation. So let's go ahead and set these to some functions. The first one gets a chat ID for the chat ID that we're going to be sending the message to, and the message that's going to be sent. And we're going to make that equal to that. And then down here, we're going to say a constant, and this constant is going to be the socket from our props. So we say this equals this dot props. Perfect. And then we are going to emit to this socket one thing, and that is the message sent. And then inside there, we're going to send an object with the properties of chat ID and message with those values from right here. And SendTyping is going to do something very similar, actually completely almost the exact same. It's going to take a chat ID and is typing instead, and it's going to go out, say const socket. It's going to get that socket from this props. Okay, and then we are going to socket.emit typing, and then we're going to send the chat ID that we're typing to, and the is typing. Great. So now there's one thing that you probably have noticed is that we still don't have a chat from our socket manager. So if you look at our socket manager, you see that we have connected users here, but there's no chat that's actually going into our chat container. So we need to get the community chat, the overall chat that everyone's going to go to no matter what. And the way we do that is we're going to have a few more methods added to this. So let me go ahead and get those documentations, oh my gosh, and show you how it all works. All right, so here we are. We have three new methods that we need to implement, and that is the reset chat and the add chat, as well as the component did mount, which is just a lifecycle method of React. So inside our lifecycle method, we're actually going to emit something from our socket. So we're going to get our socket first from this dot props, and we're going to say socket.emit, and this is going to be community underscore chat. And actually, I need to do something else, but first let's finish this, and that's going to take a method, which is going to be this dot reset chat, and we're going to make this into an arrow function instead, so we keep that, and we're going to make add chat as well into an arrow function. Great, everything's good, great. So now you might be asking, what is this dot, why are you sending this dot reset chat, and what does reset chat actually do? So what reset chat does is it sets the chat back to just the community chat, or just whatever the chat that you send into this function. And why would I return a function from a function? It's more so I don't have to, do a lot more logic inside something else. So when we send this dot add chat, what it does is it adds the chat that we send to it, and it either resets everything, it only makes it that chat. So we only have one chat, or it adds to the chats already inside the array of chats in our component here. That was a lot of chats, but you'll understand more as we go along. So right here in our add chat is where we have a lot of, um, I guess you can say logic. So first we're going to get our socket again. So we say socket equals this dot props, and then we're gonna say we're gonna get our chats from our state. So chats, and that's gonna equal this dot state from our state, and then we're going to set another constant. This is going to be called const new chats equal to, and then that is going to be equal to reset. So this means like reset. Are you want to reset the chats, or do you want to add to the actual chats, which is where that logic is? And if it is reset, we're just going to set new chats equal to the chat with the current chat, and then also else if we don't want to reset, we just want to add it to the chats. We're going to put chats back into here and then append the new chat that we're getting from up here from our variable into the new chats. And then after that, we're just going to say this dot set state, and we're going to say chats equals new chats. All right, so that's good, but now there's a few more things we need to do, and that is set up the events for this particular chat. So whenever we add a chat, we want to make sure that events are passed to just that chat, or we get events from just that chat. So we're going to make two variables right here, and they're just going to be strings, the message event string, and this string is going to be equal to our message received event and the chat ID. So chat.id. So this what this actually amounts to is it's going to say message underscore received dash the chat ID of whatever the chat ID is going to be. All right, and then we're going to actually just copy that and say this is the typing event. So we're going to say typing event, and then we're going to change this message received to, oh, I didn't close this bracket here. There we go. Take that out. And then this is going to be typing, just like that. And last thing we need to do is set the event listeners. So on typing, we want to do something, and on typing, on the typing event, we want to do something, and on the message event, we want to do something. So let's go ahead and go get some documentation. All right, so here we are. We have the add message to chat and updating in chat, typing in chat methods. And so this first one says returns a function that will add a message to the chat with the chat ID passed in. So it returns a method. So for our message event right up here, we're going to pass this callback. It's basically a callback for the backend, and we're going to return this dot add message to chat ID. So now it's going to call this callback, and since this is a function, this function is going to be called with a message on it, which I'll show you right now. So we're going to return a method, and that method is going to do all our logic that we need to do. Um, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so there we are. We got this method that looks through our chats from our this.state. Oh my gosh. And it says let new chats. So we get this new chats from our chats.map, and it searches through the chats to find the ID that is equal to this ID that was first passed in. And then it says chat.messages.push the message event. And that's not right. It should just say message. What? message and returns that chat. So then all those chats get back into the new chats, and then we return all the new or set the state of the new chats. So that's a really it seems like a really roundabout way of doing it, but it's a lot more easier to handle, especially when it comes to the back end, which we're going to do now. But before we do that, before we go to Socket Manager, let's go back down here. And I got a little bug down here. And if you see this, this is an attorney operator that only has an if statement, but not an else. So else is saying that if active chat does not equal null, do this. But if it does equal null, we want to do something else. And that's just going to say, it's going to be a div with the ID of chat room and choose. Oh my gosh, choose. And that's going to have an H3 inside of it that says choose a chat. Exclamation point, right. Cool. So now we got all that. Cool. So before we go to our socket manager, we are going to import all these constants that we have. So typing and message sent, and I think that's it. So right up here, we're going to say import. Oh, and community chat. So community chat. What else is there? What else is it? Come on, where is it? Message sent, yes. Message sent, and also message received. Oh, and typing. And that's all going to come from, it should be coming from our events.js. So that's going to be 2UP probably, events. So just so we can see our front end, we're going to go ahead and just make all these files. So chat heading is going to be inside the chats folder, and message input and messages is going to be inside a message folder. Let's go ahead and make that. So we got messages. Actually, let's make the chat heading .js right in here. Make a what's it called? React component, and it's just going to say chat heading for now. And then make a new file again. I'm going to save this one as messages.js. And we're going to go up one, new folder, messages, right? And then we're going to say, boom, messages, and say messages right there. And then last but not least, our message input. So message input.js. Make a new React component and say message input. Cool. And I think we should be able to go back to our application. Unless we forgot to import these, which I'm pretty sure we did. So let's go ahead and go up here to our chat container and import chat heading. Nope, chat heading. And that's going to be from this chat heading. And let's go ahead and default or export default for all these. So export that and export default that and export default that. So chat heading, and then we have messages, and then also message input. Boom. All right. And here we go. Looks like we got a few errors here. Chat container ID is not defined. 47, 48, and 51. Let's go to 47. Chat dash ID. Let's not do that. Chat dot ID is what that should be. And then what else was the last one? Chat ID and 51. Chat dot ID is what that should be. Cool. And looks like we can't resolve messages because it's not inside of this folder, but one folder up and inside of messages. Uh-oh. What is this? What is this? 51 in chat container. What's going on, 51 in chat container? What? When did this happen? Chat ID. All right, there we go. Oh my gosh. Did it? Oh, it redid my things up here. Oh, I must have had. I know what happened. Okay, so messages. Perfect. Jeez. The- All right, just gonna keep this all in because this happens sometimes. Great. So now if we go back and we do mic, it says choose a chat, and I choose a chat, and there we go. We got our message input, our messages, and our chat heading. There we go. All right, so first up is our chat heading, and since this doesn't really do anything but show something, we can actually just return a function. So we're going to say export default function, and that function is going to say props. And all this is called a pure function or a pure component in React, which means we don't even need this component React right here, and we don't need a render function anymore. We're just going to return something. Great. So first, let's get our props out of our props variable up there. And so we don't have to do it here, we can do it here. So we're going to get all the props we need from this, which is going to be name, and I guess we can do number of users. Let's just stick with name for right now. Let's just stick with name. Right? Okay. And then right here, we're going to have a few things. We're just going to take this all out, and we're going to say all this stuff I'm about to type. Great, so as you can see, I decided to keep the number of users, so let's go ahead and have number of users passed in right up there at the top. And that's all it really is. It's just a header with some info about the user, a status, which is just going to be like a little circle or something like that. And that is it. So if we go back here to our application and we go ahead and log in, choose a chat, and you can see that it just says community, which is the name of the chat. And we don't have our nice little icons over here. Let's go ahead and get those really quickly. Okay, great. And then we're going to go ahead and put that down here below our user info. Just say options, which are just actually aesthetically pleasing right now, and that's about it. FA video, yep. FA user plus, and oh nope, MD menu. All right, so now we are going to do the messages. Messages is actually a huge amount of thinking, not really thinking, but just a lot of markup. So I'm gonna go ahead and just code through that markup and then explain it all to you really quickly. All right, so I decided to stop here so I could explain to you what this is doing before I continue on. So in our in our message messages component, we have messages, user, and typing users from our props that are passed in. And then we have this container, which has a reference of container and a class name of thread container. And inside that we have a thread. And this thread, we're going to delete this for right now. This thread is going to map through all our messages and print them out. So we have a key of ID. We don't need that I right there. So then we say mess.id is the key, and the class name is message container, which is our message, and then the message sender. So what this means is that if the message sender equals our username, we are going to put the class right on it as well. We're going to put this right inside our class names. And then we also have the time of our message and all the data of our message, like the message itself and the person who sent the message. All right, and now let's go ahead and do our typing users as well. All right, and so we do the same thing with our typing users array that we have, and we just loop through the typing users and print those out accordingly with the class name of typing user and just print out their name plus is typing. All right, so now in our socket manager, we are going to do our events for our disconnects and our logout, and then we'll get on to sending the message and receiving the message. So first, right up here, we are going to add two constants, it looks like, or just one actually, and that's going to be user disconnected, and then also logout. Yes, we have logout. Cool. All right, so right here, socket.on. This one's actually going to be the regular socket.io event, and this is going to be disconnect. And whenever this person disconnects, we are going to first check if they're a user. So check if user, let's say user like that, is in socket. And if it is in the socket, we are going to say connected users equals remove user connected users and then sockets dot user dot name, just like that. Otherwise, we're not going to do anything, and we're also going to emit to everyone, make a broadcast that says a user disconnected, and then return the connected users of the new list of connected users. And let's go ahead and check that out. We're going to put a C-log right here to show us the users when it does disconnect. So let's go check that out. All right, so here we are in our application and our socket.io server. If I go ahead and log in, you can see that I have love right there. And if I refresh the page, you see that it prints out something else that says that it was empty. Let's go back here. I'm going to take out this clear console for now and do this again. And we're just going to put disconnect right here so you can see which one is the disconnect and which one isn't. All right, do this again. So we got login as loves, and then boom, there's loves. But if I log out, doesn't take us out yet. But if I go back in as loves double S and then restart, there's our disconnected, and it still has loves in there. So now let's do our logout, which is going to be kind of similar. So if you say socket.on logout, we're gonna do a nice function here. And we're gonna say connected users equals remove user connected users, comma sockets dot user dot name, and then io dot emit user disconnected connected users. And if we see log connected users again, I know I just repeated something, but I'd rather just do it this way. So now we disconnect. Good. So if I go back to the application and we go and say love here, you see how we have our love right in our object, and if we log out, we disconnect and there's nothing in our object. And just to show you it happening twice, we're going to do this. So we got Michael here, and there's Michael, and then Jim here, and then we say, oh, Jim refreshes, so Jim's no longer in it, and there's Michael still, and Michael refreshes, and Michael's no longer in it. All right, so next up, we are going to do our community chat event that we had in our chat container. So when the component did mount in our chat container, we said, go ahead and emit a event that says community chat, and then we send it a function called reset chat, right? So right up here, we're just going to go ahead right up here, right in our socket manager, we're going to set that event. So we get socket.on community chat, and that's going to take a callback, which is that function, and then we say callback community chat, and that's all it's going to do is to send the community chat to the person that just connected to the server. So right up here, we're going to import community chat, and we're also going to make a variable called community chat. It's going to be equal to create chat, and that should be all we have to do. So if we go to our application and we log in with John, you'll see that we have now a community chat right there, and if we click on it, we got all our stuff going on. And log out. Let's go back. So now let's go ahead and look at that just so we can see that chat there. So we say chat, and we say log in. Nope. Okay. Yes. Refresh. Log in. And if we look at our console, we got some red here. Okay. First, I'll show you the object. So that's our chat object right here with the ID of blah 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 and messages and the community, which is that, and typing users, which is perfect. So now let's go ahead and fix these errors real quick. We got usually called set state. It looks like we tried to set the state after login form was taken away. That's easy. And then placeholder, also in login form. Let's go look at our login form real quick. And looks like we tried to set the state after we set the user, which means this goes away. And then we tried to set the error, which sets the state of this component. And then placeholder, did I mean placeholder? I think that's what that wants. And if we refresh, looks like everything is cool. Love. Yes, perfect. All right. All right, so in our socket manager, I have some documentation for a function that we're going to implement. And this function is going to be called SendMessageToChat. And what if this is? It's just a higher order function that returns a function that is eventually going to emit that a message was sent to a certain chat. So let's just go ahead and implement it, and I'll continue to tell you what it is. So first thing is that this takes a sender, like the name of the sender of the message, and it's going to return a function that takes a chat ID and takes a message, just like we did from our message input, or actually our chat container. So then that is going to go ahead and take our IO, and it's going to emit the event that we need, that the chat needs to receive it on the client. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Message received, like that. And then this is also going to be dash, and then chat ID. And usually I would probably make a method that would make this for me instead of having to do it like this. But just for the sake of time, I'm not going to. And then create message. So then it's going to send the new message that is going to be sent. And we create that message, and that takes two parameters, the message and the sender. And that message is coming from here, and the sender is coming from here. So now we're going to use SendMessageToChat to make our message received and message sent events. So let's go on up here and go ahead and import that for us. Bring this down, and we'll import message received and message sent. Great. So now right down here in our function for our socket, we're going to have a variable, and that variable is going to be called SendMessage to chat from user. And the reason we're making this is so that we can use that higher order function, SendMessage to chat, and just call this function instead of having to give it multiple arguments. So SendMessage to chat from user, perfect, we got that. Now we're going to set that variable in our user connected. So it's actually going to be a function, send message from chat from user equals send message to chat, and we're going to give it the sender, and that sender is going to be user.name. Right, so this send message to chat gets the user, and that sits right in here and returns this function. So now we can call this function whenever we want inside our socket here. So now we have socket.on message received whenever we receive a message, and that message is going to give us a message and a sender. Yes, that's going to give us a message and a sender. Put this in parentheses and make an arrow function. So on message received, what do I mean? Not message received, I actually mean message sent. On message sent. So whenever this user sends a message, we want to go ahead and get that message from them. And let's remember, let's find out what we're getting. Oh yes, we're getting the chat ID and the message. So the message and the chat ID, just like that. And here we go. We are going to call that message send message from chat from user, and then we just pass in chat ID and message, and we're done. So this then is called, and this calls this method right here and emits to all the sockets, hey, there was a message sent to this chat ID. Now let's do our message input. This is probably going to be a pretty long one, but I think we can get through it, guys. So first, I'm going to go ahead and do the markup for it. Just going to speed through it for you guys and then explain it to you because I'm not really good at explaining and coding at the same time, especially when it's a lot of code. So here we go. And there we are. We did everything. So let's go ahead and just explain this to you really quickly. I'm going to zoom in and just explain it line by line. Of course, we have a class for our message input, and then we have a form inside that that goes from here all the way down to here. And what we do with that form is we have an on submit that we're going to do, which is going to be a handle submit, which is going to handle when we want to send our message. Then we have a class name on that, which is message-form. Then we have an ID for our input for our message and a reference to that input that we're going to use later, along with our type equals text, class name equals form dash control, a value, which is going to be a message that we get from our state, and autocomplete is off so we don't have any random autocompletes showing up when we're doing this, and placeholder, of course, an on key. So whenever they press a key, if the key is not the enter button, if they're not pressing enter, we're going to go ahead and send typing to the server, which we have to do eventually, and then on change, which is going to take an event that has a target, and when this message change is going to set the state of the message to that value. Last but not least, in our button, this button is going to be disabled if the message.length is less than 1, and our type is going to be submit for this button, and the class name is going to be send for our styles. And then we just got some send going on in there. So now let's go ahead and implement some of these functions that we have, our handle submit and our send typing. All right, so right here at the top, before we implement those functions, let's go ahead and put our constructor up here and set its state. So this state is going to be a message, and it's going to be empty string for now. And I think that's all we have to do for that actually. Maybe, oh yeah, we have to have a variable for is typing as well. So if the user is typing, that'll be false at the beginning, we have a variable for that in our state. So now let's go ahead and implement our handle submit, and that's just going to take an event inside of it. And let's make it this so we don't have to go ahead and do all that binding stuff. So e.prevent default, just like we did for our login form. We don't want it to actually submit to the browser. We just want it to do our own submit here. And then this is going to call this dot send message, which we're going to implement right now, along with this dot set state message, which is just going to clear our message after we send a message. So now this dot send message is this right here. We're going to get an event. We're not getting an event from this. We're just calling it. And all this is going to do is it's going to say this dot props dot send message, and it's going to pass in this dot state dot message. And that's all that's going to do for us. And then we also have the SendTyping, which I'm just going to um, go ahead and just make a function for, but we're not going to implement it at this moment. So let's go ahead and explain what this whole send message thing is doing right here. So whenever we submit the form and it goes into here, it prevents the default, says send message, and then we go to this.props.send message, which takes an argument, which is a message. So if we go back to our chat container, we'll see that that message is going to be put into this function right here, and then it's going to call this dot message send message on our chat container. Now that chat container is going to take the active chat ID, which is the ID of the current chat that we're in trying to send a message from, and that message that we sent. So then that goes right on up here and says, cool, let's go ahead and socket.emit message sent, and it's going to send the chat ID and the message of what we're sending. I guess we can't really check that out if we don't finish our message input. So let's go ahead and go right here in our render function of our message input and get that message variable out of our state. So we say message equals this dot state. And we should be all good. Great. And if I choose this chat, you'll see that we got our thing right down here. And if we say LOVE and send, you'll see that in our community chat we have now our last message as love. Now, the one thing that's not changed is our messages are not sent here. Oh, yes, they are. It's right there. We didn't put our scroll method on here. We gotta make sure this scrolls down every time there's a message that is sent. So let's go ahead and do that in our messages. All right, so in our messages, we are going to use this reference that we have right here, and we're going to make it so we can scroll. So we can say constructor, and this constructor is not going to have a state. We're not going to have a state in this one. And so we're going to go ahead and scroll down. We're going to make a method called scrollDown. And what this does is just going to get the reference that we have right here called container from this dot refs, which is just a parameter inside of messages or inside of React components. And then using that, we're going to say container dot scroll top equals container dot scroll height. Perfect. And now bind this up here. So this dot scroll down equals this dot scroll down dot bind this. All right. And then on component did mount, which is right here, we're going to go ahead and call this dot scroll down. And then also when the component updates, so component did update, we are going to call this, and it's going to say this dot scroll down. Perfect. So now if we go back to our application and we go ahead and log in, we go to hit our community chat and we type in something, you'll see that we're already scrolled down if you see the scroll bar right here. And then when we type in something, press enter, there we go. We still scroll down at the bottom of our component. And we just keep on typing just like that. Perfect. So now the beauty of this is that we're basically done. If I open this in another tab like this, I could just and I log in as Mike, and I click the community chat, and I say, hey man, you'll see that hey man's there, and then hey man is also here with the name of Mike. So that's what you were doing all that coding for, so that we could do all of that stuff. So the last thing we have to do is go ahead and set up our is typing right here. In our message input, we are going to have a method that is SendTyping, and SendTyping is going to have all this stuff in it. Here we go. It's going to say this dot last update time equals dates dot now. And all this is it's setting a variable or property on our class right here, on our component here, that is set to the date when they start typing. And then we're going to say if not this dot state dot is typing. So if the user is not typing, we are going to go ahead and set the state to is typing. And then we're going to say this dot props dot send typing, and we're going to send true to that. So this send typing property right here is from our chat container. If we go down to our render method, you'll see right here it's this method that we're actually calling, and that's that true. It's going to go right here. So now last thing we're going to do is we're going to say this dot start checking typing. And what this is just a method that is going to start an interval that checks to see if the user is still typing. And if they're still typing, it'll continue to check until they're not typing. So now let's go ahead and down here and do that. All right, so now we're going to do this start checking typing equals this. And then we're going to say this dot typing interval, which is going to be equal to set interval. And all this does is it continues to keep that ID that set interval gives back or returns, so we can later clear that interval so it doesn't continue to happen or stop that interval. So now inside here, we're going to have a function, and we're going to check if the user is typing every 300 milliseconds. So now inside here, we're going to say if dates.now minus this dot last update time is greater than 300. This is when we want to stop it. We want to stop it if they stop typing and they haven't been typing for 300 milliseconds. So then we're going to say this dot set state, and then say is typing is equal to false. And then we're going to say this dot stop checking typing. And what stop checking does is exactly what it says. It stops checking if the user is typing. It stops this interval right up here. Stop checking typing equals, and it's going to say if this dot typing interval, so it's going to check if there's even an interval in the first place, and then it's going to say clear interval, and it's going to say this dot typing interval, and say this dot props dot send typing, and it's going to send false because the user is no longer typing. So now we need to go ahead and call this stop checking method whenever the component is going away or the user logs out or something like that. So this is going to be component did unmount or will unmount. Component will unmount, I'm pretty sure. Yep, component will unmount. So this is not unmount. There we go. Will unmount. So here we're just going to call it this dot stop checking. So we want to make it to stop checking if this component unmounts. All right. Let's go ahead and look at the application. All right, so if we start typing, we won't see anything, but if we go back here and we put a C-log right here, we say it's typing, and then we're going to say C-log stop typing. Great, so now if we go back and we say this and this, we're going to say this, and there we go, we got typing, and if I stop typing, there it goes stop typing, and I start typing and then stop typing. Perfect. And if I log out while I'm typing, you'll see that it says stop typing. Cool. Now, next thing we need to do is send this to the backend, which it should already be sending to. So we got SendTyping in our chat container here. emits typing. So if we go to our socket manager, we're going to go ahead and get that event socket.on typing, and let's go ahead and import typing from our events. All right, and that's going to get an isTyping variable and also a chat ID. Let's make sure that's correct. Yep, it's going to take a chat ID and oh, there it is, chat ID and isTyping, and that's an object. So in our socket manager, and it is typing and chat ID. Perfect. And we're just going to go ahead and log that as well so we can see that in our server. There we go. So now we have, if we start typing, you can see that it says true and false, just like that. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and implement that so that it can send it to all the chat, this chat ID, whatever this chat is. All right, so inside of our socket manager, right at the bottom, right under our function, we are going to have another function that is called SendTyping And it's just like our SendMessageToChat, where it's a higher order function and it returns a function. So we're going to say SendTyping And then that's going to take a username and it's going to return a function, which is going to take a chat ID and a isTyping variable, just like we have coming from our typing event here. And then that's going to say IO emit, and then we're going to say boom, like that. I'm going to say typing, and then dash, and then the chat ID. And then we're going to say comma, and then it's going to also send the user and isTyping. All right, so now this emits typing chat ID is going to be it's going to happen in our chat container, pretty sure. So let's see, where's that at? Right here. When we add a chat, we also add an event for getting that chat. So then right here, we're going to say this dot update typing in chat. And that's going to take a chat ID, and that chat ID is going to be chat.id, just like it is down here. So our update typing in chat is right here that we didn't implement earlier, but we are implementing now. So here we go. This is going to return a function that takes two things, and that's going to be isTyping and the chat ID. All right, and then it's going to do a few things. Inside here is going to say if user does not equal this dot, actually this is supposed to be user, not. So this is the user that's typing, and it says if the user is not equal to this dot props dot user dot name. All right, so if the user does not equal the user that's logged in right now on this client, we're going to say const and get the chats for this one. State, and we are going to check. We're going to get the new chats by saying chats.map, right? And that's going to have a chat in it. For each of the chats, we're going to check to see if that chat.id equals chat ID, which is right up here. And then we're going to say if isTyping and not chat.typing users that includes user. So this checks if the user that is typing is already in the typing users array of the chat and that the user is typing. So if that is happening, we're going to go ahead and say chat.typing users.push and push the user. And then else, we want to check if not is typing, if the person is not typing, and they are already in the typing users array. And then if that's true, we're going to say chat typing users equals chat typing users chat.typing users dot filter, and we're going to filter out that username. So we're going to say user dot does not equal user. So we filter out that user's name, and then we're going to return that chat. All right. And then after that, we got to set the state of this new chat. So we say set state, and we say chats equals new chats. And that should be basically all we have to do. In our socket manager, we're going to send a chat from this user. So first, we need to go ahead and say send typing from user, and that's going to take two things: the chat ID, like it is in the thing, and is typing. So now, send typing from user, we're going to get from here. This is what send typing from user is actually going to be, and it's going to emit. So if I say send typing from user, I go all the way up here, inside here, and I say let this, and then I set that right here, send typing from user equals, and we're going to use that method we used down at the bottom, send typing to chat, and that's going to get user.name. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and check that out in the application. Of course, we need to put a function right here though, because that's not how things work for functions. And then we should be able to go back to the application. All right, so now we have two clients open here. We're going to log in as Mike here, and we're going to log in as Jimmy here, and then we're going to click this chat, and we're going to say, hey, look at that. And then you see that Mike is typing right over here. And then if I start typing here, you'll see that Jimmy is typing over here. And then we got our message going on up, which is absolutely perfect. Okay, so now we're going to fix a quick thing, and that is the whole, if I log in, I have to click on the community chat instead of just having the community chat open when I log in. So if we go to our chat container, and we look here where we have our add chat method in our chat container, we're going to go right here where we set our state, and we say active chat, and we're going to say if we're resetting, we're going to set it to that chat. But if we're not resetting, we're just going to keep the active chat the way it is. This dot state dot active chat. Great. And if we go to our application, looks like I put a comma instead of a colon. And we go ahead and try to log in. You'll see that our community chat is already active, and we can just go ahead and start typing.
Thank you so much, guys, for even making it through both of those videos. If you watched all the way through both of those videos, you are basically the real MVPs, and I really appreciate that so much. If you enjoyed it, you think that you want to see more from me, go ahead and leave a like, and if you really enjoyed it, go ahead and subscribe, and let me know down in the comment section why you subscribe and what do you want to see from me in the future. Also, if you have any questions, or comments about the video, about the code, about anything really, just go ahead and leave it in the comment section. Feedback is definitely welcome. It helps me become a better programmer as well as it helps other people become a better programmer. I also will be leaving the code and styles link down in the description, so you can go ahead and look at it on your own time. If you don't have time to, go through this video over and over again, you can always just look at the code with that link. And again, guys, you are the real MVPs. So without further ado, my name's Leon, this is Bear, and I'll see you in the next line of code.